So, who are your favorite photographers or photo artists out there? I love the work of A.M. Lorick. It's so easy to recognize her style. All of her subjects have that porcelain skin, no pores, no texture, very reduced saturation, almost, blues and a little bit of yellow and red hues to the skin. It also looks like she uses the Smudge Tool to kind of paint over the skin, although I'm not really sure. So I wanted to see if I could take a basic portrait and apply what I perceive to be similar techniques as her to achieve similar results. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to very quickly go back to, so I'm just going to open this image back into Adobe Camera Raw. I'm going to reset it so that you can see what this image started out like. So if I reset it to default, okay, so here's what the image looked like straight out of the camera. It's pretty dark. I'm a little surprised. I didn't think it started out quite this way, but it's entirely possible. Anyway, so this is how it started. I'm going to cancel that. These are the Adobe Camera Raw tweaks that I did. So let's go back in and let's just see what I did to get this from the reset, right? I reduced my contrast down by 75. I increased my shadows by plus 72, the blacks by plus 69. I increased my clarity a bit. And then I also went over here to masks, and you can see that I applied this first mask was to the background, and I reduced the contrast. I upped the shadows, reduced the whites a bit, and upped the blacks. Okay, and then on my subject mask, you can see here that all I did was increase the temperatures, so it's a little bit more yellow, and I did add a slight curves adjustment, once again lifting more of the shadows. And the reason for that is because if you take a look at A.M. Lorick's work, then you can truly see that what she does is she takes away almost virtually all of the contrast. There's very little contrast left in the skin of her subjects. Let's analyze her image and see what else she's done. Well, I can see from here that she's definitely applied a matte to the background. She's for sure sharpened up portions of the image, like super sharp, her hair especially. Also in her hair, she's definitely changed the blacks to red. So you can see that there's no real blacks in her hair anywhere. They're very red. And I tried to achieve the same kind of result. And I'll show you how I did that. She definitely added lip color, and you can just see that all of this is very, very soft and very painterly. I absolutely love her work. I think it's just phenomenal. Lots of sharpening down in the hair. And then an overall matte, I would say, to really help once again lift those jet blacks so that they're definitely more matte. Okay, I'm not sure if her hair is actually red, but I am sure that she definitely enhanced the red. So obviously, I think I kind of got it. You can see in the skin here, there's a lot of blues. Then there's more red and blue and red and almost yellow in the highlights. So, and you can still see the veins, the blue of the veins, and all of this lends itself to being very painterly and very realistic. So I love it. I used the mixer brush as opposed to the smudge tool. So I feel like I probably lacked that particular skill set here because I cannot seem to work with the smudge tool in Photoshop. If I'm using Procreate, the smudge tool is entirely different and it's much, much better. But the Photoshop smudge tool, for me, I just can't master it, or at least I haven't as of yet. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go and focus on this image. So I'm going to turn everything off, and we're going to start from basically the very beginning. So I'll turn everything off right about here. Okay, so here you can see this is my image that I did straight out of Adobe Camera Raw. So these are the tweaks from the original open. So then the next thing that I did, I came in, this is a hue saturation layer, and I went into my reds, I went into my yellows, and you can see that I just reduced the saturation almost down to 99, and I also moved the hue over to more greens. Okay, and that's the first thing that I did. And then I just inverted the mask and I painted that on. I did try to leave some variable reds, like I tried to leave some of the pinks in her skin. I didn't want to completely get rid of it. And then I did another selective color, and this time I went into the neutrals and I increased the yellows and I increased the reds to get this color, and then I painted it on. The next thing I did was I just did some basic dodging all over the skin, trying to lighten up areas and make it just a little bit more painterly by using dodge. Then I came in with my selective color, went into the blacks, and I turned the reds, the blacks in the red, even a little more red. And I did increase the lightness by 8 as well. I added 2 for more yellow. And that just kind of brightened it up a little bit and really helped create those red shadows. Okay, so the next thing I did was I came in with my mixer brush. So I didn't use frequency separation on her skin. I just straight up used the mixer brush because I wasn't worried about maintaining any texture in the skin. In keeping with A.M. Lorick, that's pretty much what I see. I don't see any skin texture in her work whatsoever. I then came in with the curves adjustment and brightened up the whole image because, as you can see, it was definitely too dark. Next thing that I did, I'm just going to turn all these off. So I did a stamp layer like so. I adjusted various portions. I reshaped our model with Liquify. I plumped up her hair, and I definitely added some blush to her face and lipstick. So you can see how here we just shaped everything, but it really did make a world of difference. Now, what did I do to add the blush? I used a soft brush, normal blend mode. I didn't use overlay. I didn't use soft light. I was at 100% opacity and 9% flow, and I very lightly just painted color somewhere in here. I usually do right about here on my reds, and then I just came in at 9% and gently painted that here, the tip of her nose, and a little bit here. And then what I do is I just adjust the opacity to suit. Okay, so now we're starting to get somewhere, right? It's actually starting to look kind of similar. So that was my stamp layer, and I had to stamp all the layers into another image because I had to do that in order to liquefy and start shaping my model. Now the next one is a curves adjustment. So this curves adjustment, I ended up coming in and adding some more depth to the image, and you'll see why here in a second. Then I came in with levels and I lightened up right here. I lightened up those blacks, so I matted them out a little bit, which you can definitely tell. The next thing I did was more selective color, and what I did with this selective color is kind of hard to really notice. Is I came in and in the neutrals I added some cyan and some blue, and I boosted it a little bit, and then all I did was just paint that randomly on portions of her skin. I'm trying to get that kind of mixed hues within the skin tones like she does all the time, where she has some blues, some reds, some pinks, stuff like that. I wanted those inconsistent colors because it's actually more in keeping with nature, right? And then the next thing that I did, another hue adjustment, or sorry, selective color layer. Let's come to the blacks, and you can see I really jacked up the reds within the blacks again, and I pulled up the lightness by -1. And now we're really starting to see those looks, right? So that's before, and you come in and you do that, and you can see, oh, okay, that really popped out those darker, kind of more contrasty blacks. That really did, and it applies that effect all over all the shadows and the darks in the image, which really gives it a soft kind of, very consistent look across the entire image. So now we're getting somewhere. So let's open up the last group. I'm just going to turn these off. Once again, I stamped my image because what I wanted to do was apply the sharpening. So I'm just going to zoom in here so that you can see the kind of sharpening we really got from this. So this is before I applied the sharpening. This is after. So you can really see how wonderful that sharpening really was. And of course, what I had to do, I stamped the layer. So, Shift Option Command E will stamp your layer, create a new image layer. And then I duplicated it, changed the blend mode to linear light. And then I came up to Filter, Other, and then High Pass. And what you do in High Pass when you have this is you come in and you put your square, the area you want it to be, and make sure that whatever is showing in the preview here doesn't look too sharp. You want it right before it's too sharp so that it doesn't over sharpen your image, and then you'll have a whole bunch of noise in the areas that you sharpened. Okay, so that's what I did, and I left that at 100% opacity. And then the next thing I did, I just had to come in and fix up her lips because they were looking kind of jonky. And the next thing I did is I just brightened them up with a little bit more red. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. So now you can see, okay, this is pretty close at this point. For finishing touches, all I did was added a gradient to the right here, and then a little levels adjustment with a tiny bit more contrast in order to really make the image look similar to A.M. Loric. So now you can see that if you really look at this image next to mine, that I think I managed to achieve the majority of the look, let's say, right? But I still would like to know how she does this, and I'm pretty sure it's a smudge tool. But I love how inconsistent it is and imperfect. I think it really lends itself to more of a painting than a photograph. But then the sharpness that she applies everywhere else makes it more photographic. So you have almost a perfect blend of painterly and photographic in her work. Her work is always ethereal. It's very, very romantic, and I seriously suggest you should go check her out. And here is another edit that I did. This is definitely more the fantasy style that A.M. Loric does, so I wanted to actually play with it. Now, I did want to share something with you because I think I figured out the skin softening. It might not actually be the smudge tool. If any of you out there have Topaz DeNoise, then check this out. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the studio portrait of Asha. Now, I have not done any retouching on her. I just did some dodging and burning on her face just to get the shadows kind of minimized a bit. So I'll just show you here. That's before and that's after. So that's all I did. I just did a little bit of dodging and burning to clean up the shadows. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and flatten this. And I'm going to duplicate it. And now I'm going to run the Topaz filter. So it's actually under Topaz Labs, and it is DeNoise. Now, the reason why I think this might be it is because depending on the setting that you use with this plugin will depend on what you're going to end up with. So I'm just going to make sure that I put this over her face and move it over here. Now, right now I have it on clear, which is clearly way too strong because it's pretty much taken away everything and really sharpened things up. But if we go down to low light, we can see what else we come up with. And low light doesn't remove enough texture because you remember in the original sample image, there's no texture in skin. So let's try severe noise. And I think this is the one that actually ends up making it look very painterly. So it keeps all the highlights, you can see, and it keeps pretty much everything, and it's very soft, and the sharpness isn't too terribly sharp. You could enhance that sharpness right about there if you want a little bit more. I think this might be it. There's still some texture. Let's go back to standard and maybe we can reduce it because it's definitely too strong. It says remove noise. Maybe we'll put a little bit of noise back. Let's see. That's not bad. You can still see some of the pores on her nose. Enhanced sharpness is not going to help. But let's say that we're going to go ahead and use this one. We're not going to recover any of the original detail. Color noise reduction. No, we don't need that. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply it, and then I'll show you what I did. Okay, now let's zoom in. Because if I look at her body, you can still see a lot of hair follicles, and then it's too soft in other places. The face looks not too bad. So if we turn it off, the face looks not too bad. I'm actually not minding that. So let's try this. I'm going to add a layer mask, and I'm going to put my flow to around 50, and I'm going to paint it off of, let's say, the eyebrows, because I don't want that blurred out. I definitely don't want her eyes blurred out. So we want to keep some of that detail. It's just a little too blurry there. So I think if you just go ahead and paint off the areas that are perhaps too blurry, too soft, that will work. You could definitely paint off some of the blur that they've applied to the hair. I do like how it affected her arms. I think that's good. See how you can still see the veins? So I'm wondering if this isn't the way. Now this obviously is a problem. So yeah, you know what I would suggest is I would suggest coming in with your layer mask and painting off some of that blur, and then saving it, and then probably duplicating your layer, go in and do it again and see if you can't affect the other areas that weren't affected. And be careful to brush it off of, you know, the hair that perhaps got too blurry, because we know that we want all the details in the hair. So I would just come in here and take it all off the hair, because the hair should be sharp. But I just wanted to try and see if there wasn't perhaps another way besides using the mixer brush or the smudge tool. And I think that this could indeed be that, because it does look very painterly. It maintains the shadows and the highlights nicely. And yeah, I think with some curves adjustments and stuff, you could end up with a pretty decent image using these techniques. Okay guys, so this is my final edit. What I did was I ended up doing exactly what I said I was going to do. I flattened the image, I duplicated it, and then I ran it through the Topaz DeNoise again. And it cleaned it up a bit, but it's still seemed to really want to just sharpen all of the hair follicles on her legs. So I went in afterwards with the mixer brush and I just smoothed it all out myself. But I have to say, if you like this look, obviously it's not for everybody, you know, removing someone's pores, but in the style of A.M. Lorik, if you really like this, I think this is maybe the way she does it. And the reason why I think that is because not only does it really ultra smooth the skin, but it also really ultra sharpens everything else. And so now it's just a matter of blending that background with, you know, that really low contrast, high matte kind of thing to create those style of images. So I think when the weather warms up, I'm going to really try to create some outdoor shots, because obviously all of her shots are outside and that's what gives them that whimsy and magic. I hope you like this video, and I will see you in the next video.